Welcome to the University of the Philippines, Diliman, College of Arts and Letters, BAHAGINAN. Launched in 2016, BAHAGINAN, or Sharing, is the college's research dissemination platform. In response to the many challenges of theater artists and educators in the time of the pandemic, the Department of Speech Communication and Theater Arts, in cooperation with the Office for Initiatives in Culture and the Arts, organized Emergency Theater and Performance. Through these brown bag sessions, theater practitioners and educators will share their experiences and insights on performance making amidst the lockdown and health crisis. The sessions will run from October 9 to November 25. I wish to thank our speakers for sharing their precious time with us. No online module can match their experiences in the theater. So join us as we learn, be enlightened and inspired in the wonderful world of theater and performance. And as we say in the theater when we welcome our audience, enjoy the show!
Natin na ito ay recorded. Pangalawa, kung magtatanong po tayo mamaya sa question and answer portion, tandaan na gawin itong concise. Isulat nyo muna ito, maaaring sa chat room. Isulat ito para i-take note ko at mamaya ay pagsasama-samahin ko ang mga tanong ninyo at i-bring up natin pagkatapos ang talk ni Miss Nikki. Miss Nikki rin po, kung halimbawa may mag-post sa chat room at may burning question sila at naisin nyo pong sagutin agad, kung sakali, sige po. Wala naman pong problema.
Sure.
Okay. Para sa mga iba, kung hindi naman po kayo magsasalita at nakikinig tayo kay Miss Nikki, patayin lang po natin ang ating mga cameras. At i-mute na rin po natin ang ating mga mic. Kung meron tayong concern, halimbawa, hindi po natin marinig si Miss Nikki at may tech problem, raise your hand. Makikita nyo naman sa chat box at sa participant box ang raise hand option. At i-type nyo lang po ang concern para mai-address namin agad sa kanya. Kung halimbawa naman po ay masyadong mabilis o may hindi kayo na-catch na sinabi niya, pakisulat na rin po sa chat box para rin ma-address namin ito sa kanya. Yun lang po at maraming salamat sa lahat. Enjoy.
And syempre, before we start, introduce ko po ang ating maraming salamat sa kanyang pagtanggap ng aming imbitasyon para po magsalita. So she is an events manager, a cultural worker, and a writer. As an events manager working full-time for the Cultural Center of the Philippines, she has acted as a production and stage manager of many local and international festivals, among which are the Pasinaya Open House Festival, the Virgin Love Fest, the National Theater Festival, Neo Filipino, and the Wi-Fi Contemporary Dance Festival. She was an apprentice for Britain's David Glass and Song, and attended the Association for Asia Pacific Performing Arts Centers Conference in Korea as a delegate of the CCT. She also took part in the Toyama Performing Arts Market in 2015. In her free time, Nikki is a freelance writer who has written scripts for many CCP events, as well as for various magazines and newspapers. She has written several articles for the second edition of the CCP Encyclopedia for the Arts, Theater Volume. She has penned a booklet on voters' education for the Philippine Educational Theater Association. A lover of children and young adults literature, Nikki is the Assistant Regional Advisor of the Philippine chapter of the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. Guys, please welcome Ms. Dominic Nikki Garde-Torres.
Okay, hello. Thank you, Ish. Okay, I would actually, I'm happy to be here, particularly because Ish and Olive, the students of Ish and Olive were a tremendous help during the recently concluded VLF 2020. Hindi ko alam kung anong gagawin namin kung wala yung mga estudyante nila. Totoo lang. So, good afternoon. Today, I am here to speak to you about the Virgin Love Fest, a festival that I have been involved with since its inception in 2005. First, as the dragon at the gates of the front of house area monitoring all complimentary tickets, and as the writer of the 30 to 40-page souvenir program. Since Virgin Lab Fest 7, I have been the production manager of this festival. CJK calls me the festival manager, but anyway, I know this festival and I know it well. But first, let me add a few more things about myself. My student number, believe it or not, was 7211117. From grade 1 to 10. In college, it was 821217. I was a political science major. In college, any artistic endeavors I had was when I was with the UP Christian Youth Movement. So unlike you, and you guys are fortunate in that you seem to know what you want already. My mind as a young person was not set in theater nor in management. I liked and I still love the social studies. Today, I am far from political science. I'm a production manager who has worked at the CCP since before most of you were born. As a coordinator, that's what they called us, which really means a production manager. And when I have the time, I am a writer as well, as Ish said. I have obviously a lot of my work as a writer is for the CCP, but I used to write for the Philippine Free Press. And on one or two memorable occasions, I even wrote articles for the Philippine Playboy magazine. Yes. I'm a mother and a wife, and my daughter teaches Spanish and literature, while my husband, who has also written a number of plays, teaches history. Why is this important? Because even before I discuss festival management, it is important for all of you to remember that in any event or any production, we all come from different backgrounds and different realities. These realities are crucial in informing or determining our choices and the way we do things within that event. And in the Virgin Lab Fest, with over 200 people involved, and since the advent of Facebook Messenger, with at least 10 chat groups for every festival, I actually would be closer to 20. No? Communication is absolutely crucial. Our artists, the members of our creative production and administrative teams, are theater artists, visual artists, scientists, bankers, exercise gurus, engineers, teachers, you name it, they have practiced that profession. One of our longest running directors, the director has directed the most sa LabFest, was a math major. So as a writer, I love to communicate. And again, as I said, communication is crucial. As a festival manager, every day from 7 a.m. to 12 midnight, you are literally talking, chatting, PMing, emailing people in order to get things done. As a lover of social studies, I'm able to understand what is going on outside of the theater, and especially today, with all of the daily, the crisis. You all know that this understanding becomes very, very important. Now, how do I introduce the Virgin Lab Fest in the simplest way possible? The Virgin Lab Fest is a theater festival of untried, untested, and unstaged one-act works. We used to have full-length works, but that didn't work out, so we are strictly one-act now. It is a partnership between the Cultural Center of the Philippines, the Writer's Block, and Tanghalang Filipino. That is the simplest definition of what the Lab Fest is. Of course, it is more than that. So what are the numbers? Can you show the first slide, please? Through 16 years of existence, the Virgin Lab Fest has staged a total of 285 plays. Of these, 8 have crossed over and become film. This year, here are the statistics. We streamed 18 plays with 58 actors and 16 playwrights and directors. We are proud to say that despite the crisis of COVID, we provided jobs for a total of 193 individuals. Admittedly, the government is taking its time in processing their payment, but it is assured payment. Revenue is down, but we still got 89,000 pesos, and we had donation buttons for the AWPI, and we managed to get 15,000 worth of donations. How did we do this? First, we have to remember that the bulk of the funding and the work falls on the CCP, a government institution, so that when we do anything at all, the realities of bureaucracy are always considered. Second, is there a difference between the tasks of a festival manager and the tasks of a production manager? The only difference is scope. A festival manager is really literally, for me, like a production manager on steroids. You essentially do the same things. However, instead of a cast of 5, you will have up to 60 actors. Instead of a food flow for 50, you will have up to 200 people per meal with up to 3,000 meals for the duration of the festival. Instead of dealing with one director, you deal with up to 21, 22 directors. You see where I'm going? So how do we do it? With the Lab Fest, by this time, we have the privilege of time because we already work on an annual cycle. That is what is great about having a festival with longevity. There is a cycle. What does this mean? It means that, in general, on the last day of the festival, we announce that we are open for entries for the next festival. So we never ever really stop. In between festivals, I am busy downloading scripts and submissions and collating them for the people who have to read them. And really, literally, once we announce it, normally 2 days later, there is a submission. So what is a step-by-step process? I have to be honest and tell you that until your teachers, si Ish and si Uleb, messaged me about this, I had never really written down the steps. So thank you very much, Uleb and Ish. Napag-isipan ko kung ano talaga yung steps to doing the lab test. So next slide, please. So here are, in general, step 1 is venue booking. Step 2 is getting the commitment of all partners. Step 3 is a preparation of a budget. Steps 4 and 5 is a production schedule and the gathering of the core group. Next slide, please. Okay. These are the members of the core group. The festival director, production management team, head SMs, technical directors, the heads of the design teams, property master, costume mistress, playwrights, fair coordinator, and fellowship coordinator. This is the group of people that I work with most closely. We share ideas almost on a daily basis, but we will discuss that further later. Next slide, please. We gather stage managers for a pool and we prepare the marketing and media plan. All the way up to step 6. These are meetings which happen even before the plays are chosen. Once the plays are chosen, we have preparatory meetings, the orientation of the stage managers, directors, playwrights, design meetings, and then preparation of contracts. Si Miss Isa is a VLF veteran, and she has gone through all of this. And then next slide, please. And then we start with rehearsals and the gathering of requirements and preparing the food and transportation requirements. Then marketing goes full blast, and we start with set construction. By the step 10, we would assume that rehearsals, that each group would have rehearsed at least 4 or 5 times, so they are set for their critiquing and the final production meeting. Festival, then we have the festival proper, after which, as you all know, production managers are the first in and last out. Then we have payments and reports. Okay? Just 12 easy steps. That is a summary of what we do for 4 months, really. But with constant evaluation and correction, no 2 years are ever exactly the same in terms of systems, because truthfully, when there are issues, and every year there are new issues, there are new challenges that come up, the solutions of these issues often bring about the change in our methods, and sometimes changes in contracts, changes in documents. And then, of course, this year there is, and ever shall be COVID-19. So if you just look at these steps, you can see that what I do is no different from any other production manager, in that I take the different parts and turn it into a whole in partnership with the core group. And of course, aside from the nitty-gritty of what I do or what I work on myself, I have to supervise and monitor almost everything that everyone else is doing. So let us go through each of the steps within the context of the Virgin Lab Fest. Step 1, venue booking. Next slide, please. All right. If you notice throughout this talk, what I will be showing you is what we were prepared for, which is pre-COVID, and what actually happened because of COVID. The only reason that pre-COVID we would book venues very early is because at the CCP, booking of venues happens 1 full year in advance, otherwise maubusan ka ng venue. So as you can see from here that initially we had 3 performance venues, 1 classroom, and 2 more venues for a playwrights fair. After COVID, everything shifted. Everything shifted to Vimeo and to 2 Facebook pages, the CCP Facebook page and the Virgin Lab Fest Facebook page. Later on, you will see that this made a big difference in our lives. Step 2 is getting the commitment of all partners. Next slide, please. Although our partners are constant, they have never said no. And although every year, we still have to go to them and find out what their specific commitment is. And really, this is more the task of your producer or of higher management. But of course, as a festival manager or as a production manager, you have to be aware of what people are willing to give. Okay? So, as you can see, the only thing that changed was, in terms of Tanghalang Pilipino, we could no longer use Buluagang Amado Hernandez. They allowed us to use the Actors Company House as our base, because we were all working from our homes and we needed a place literally where we could deposit all props, all costumes, all sets, all equipment before we transferred them to the different houses of the different actors. Okay, just in case, because I know that only 1 or 2 of you were actually actively part of the Lab Fest. What happened with the Lab Fest was we had to do it remote, which means that if you have a play with a cast of 5, each of those 5 people worked from their homes. The stage manager was in his home, the director and playwright were in their homes. So talagang remote. So whenever anyone needed a costume or if their Wi-Fi connection was bad and we needed to send them equipment, lighting equipment, sound equipment as well. We would bring it to the House of Tanghalang Pilipino, and from there, we would have it delivered to the different homes. So COVID really made our lives very exciting. These are the very bare bones of everyone's contribution. Not included here are endless consultations, particularly when there were emergencies or decisions to be dealt with, and that was on almost a daily basis. It was also during these almost daily consultations that the components of the Lab Fest were decided. And next slide, please. Yan yun. Okay. Medyo maliit, no? But if I'm fine with having them sent to you and being shared. So, in effect, the festival had 4 major components: the performances, the fellowship program, which is our teaching program, the playwrights fair, and collab, which is short for collaboratory discussions. So they were discussions with our collaborators. So as you can see, I divided this into what would have happened if we were on the live stage pre-COVID, and then you have what we planned once we decided on going on an online platform, which is still different from what actually happened. And then we had an extension for the performances. So if you just take a look at this table, you can see that we had to do a lot of adjusting. And I think that's at the core of the job. You have to know when to be firm and when to adjust. Okay, why is there a difference in the number of works? Because in part, once we decided to use an online platform, we went back to our directors, we went back to our playwrights and asked them if they were willing to stay with us if it was not a live performance. Not a live performance, meaning not on stage. And 3 of them decided that their works would not translate well online. And that was fine. We also went back to the entire staff and asked them if they wanted to stay because they were not hired to do online work. And a few of them backed out, and that was fine because it's a whole different mindset to shift from being on a stage, a physical stage, to going online. And there were so many uncertainties involved. Okay. So, my apologies. Tatlo kaming Okay. So then, step 3 is prepare a production budget. Unfortunately, I cannot share our production budget with you. De, advance ka pa. Dali lang. All right. Based on the agreement with our partners and with our realities for the year, every year our realities change. We do our budget. What happens kasi is when the CCP allocates a budget, we have a very general amount. And then when we know what plays are chosen, then we know how many actors there are. Once the auditions are done, then we know how many senior actors versus junior actors. Then we can be more specific with our budget. Now this year, although I can't show you the amount, 83% of the budget went to personnel. 83% went to honoraria, and we were happy with that because part of the reason that we pushed for the continuation of the lab test was because, aside from the fact that we think that it is a very important festival, we did not want anyone to lose jobs. It's that simple. It's very pragmatic. And then the reality is, in terms of the CCP, again, as a government institution, we were requested by management to cut the budget by 40%. My understanding is that this amount, the amount reduced, removed, etc., would go to the national government, theoretically, for COVID relief. The components of the budget in any given year are honoraria, and then the standard of the CCP is 15% of any project budget has to go to marketing. Set construction na nawala na ngayon because, well, we could not construct sets. Food, again, part of the 40% removed. Equipment rental, we did have to purchase some equipment. Administrative and production supplies. In terms of administrative and production supplies, because again, we were unable to, normally for administrative and production supplies, we get from the supplies of the CCP. Since we were unable to do that because of the restrictions of COVID, our truly heroic stage managers advanced the funds, and we slowly reimbursed them, very, very slowly. So the next step is the preparation of a production schedule and gathering a core group. These are two separate steps which have to happen more or less at the same time. Are they on me as PM? Yes, they are. Always in consultation with everyone. But these steps 4 and 5 are the last steps that I do almost by myself. Because after that, when the core group is in, then the full team is on board and I talk to them every day, every few hours of the day, and they're able to give their input. For 12 years, the deadline for submission of scripts was the last day of February, which meant that if we wanted to start rehearsals in April, our selection committee would have 2 weeks in March to read and choose which place we're going to be staged. And then our festival director would have only 2 weeks to find directors for up to 21 plays. So ang joke niyan dati nila Taksu Takyo, si Tax was festival director for 8 years, was that tuwing Holy Week, yun ang panata niya, reading all of the scripts. But this year, or for VLF 16, the deadline was moved to all the way in November. The deadline was November 30, 2019. It was tweaked so that we would have more time to prepare, more time to find directors, and so that the 3 people tasked to read the scripts and choose just 12 featured works would not have to rush. We were hesitant about moving the deadline. After 12 years na pare-pareho yung deadline, we were so scared about moving it. But much to our surprise, we got 290 scripts, which is a record. And then again, because of COVID, the production schedule was tweaked to allow for the needs of the online platform. Sige, next slide, please. Okay. So the first column is dates. The second column was what we originally intended. And then the third column again is what happened because of COVID. So all the way until March, everything was as scheduled, despite the fact that the design meetings were held online. After March, then we had to make more adjustments. auditions were not conducted. Instead, there was a call for actors and videos were sent. I will explain this later now. Although it was clear by a certain period that Code Yellow was called that there would be no time to construct anything. Nevertheless, the deadline for final requests, that was April 3, remained. This time it pertained to the identifying of items to be borrowed rather than bought or created. It was a particular challenge for us because in previous years, we would have the whole CCP behind us. We had a production design center where we could construct things, etc. Now, we had to borrow items and we had to transport them to as far away as Cainta. And then we had an actor in Zambales, so we had to borrow there. So many challenges. And then, instead of 1 week for dress and technical rehearsals, we allotted 2 full weeks for technical adjustments. The first week was for test runs online, and then the second week was for recordings. In lieu of critiquing sessions, the recording of rehearsals and the test run were sent to the festival director for his comments. Okay, a word about the critiquing sessions. Virgin Lab Fest, because they are untried, untested, unstaged works, we consider them works in progress, always. So these critiquing sessions are crucial so that we see how the progress of each work is. Because honestly, from the time the script is submitted to the time it is staged, it is almost never exactly the same. Okay. So, next slide, please. Okay, here it is. Because we had to, in consultation with the core group and with our partners, because of the uncertainty of the times, we had to come up with the following protocols which guided us in our preparation. Okay, quarantine started, I believe, March 17. Code Green was the quarantine would end by the first week of May. Sets could still be constructed, rehearsals conducted. The Lab Fest moves on as usual at the Little Theater at Tanghalang and Tanghalang Hussein Batute. Code Yellow, the quarantine would end third week of May, but social distancing guidelines remain. Performances with little or no sets would be recorded. These recordings would be streamed on an online platform. With Code Yellow, we presumed that all the actors and all the staff would be able to gather at the CCP on a stage, but with minimal sets, because by the time Code Yellow happened, there would no longer be time to purchase materials for sets, costumes, etc. There would no longer be time to construct. But still, everyone would be in the same venue. We just needed to record and then put it up online. Of course, what happened was Code Red. The quarantine does not end. No one can travel. All cast and staff will stage each work and conduct each event from satellite venues, also known as their homes. Okay, so that's what happened, and it was very interesting. Next slide, please. All right, okay. So I spoke to you about the core group, and the core group is really the group that I worked with very closely. Now, just to show you, this is the regular staffing of the Virgin Lab Fest. We always have a festival director. He's the creative head of the Lab Fest. For 7 years, for the first 7 years, it was Rodolfo Vera. The next, for 8 years, it was Tax Rotacchio. This year, it was JK Anicoche, which was serendipitous, I think, because for me, really honestly, an online platform is a young person's platform. We have a production management team. It's very difficult for one person to do this. I am the most visible because I am the person who deals most often with everyone. But we have Cloti Lucero, who is in charge of what is over 200 contracts, and we're talking of contracts of suppliers, of everyone, personnel, suppliers, food, etc. And she's assisted by Nicey Hervas. For the past 3 years, I have had an assistant production manager, simply because you're talking of a minimum of 18 plays a year for being staged for 3 weeks. It is just, the scope is just too big. And then we have a head SM. This year it was a graduate of UP Theater Arts, Mara Agleham, who was beautiful. I have to say, she went over and beyond the call of duty. Normally, she has 2 deputy stage managers. This year, she had 1, and then we have a technical director. In addition, because of what happened, because of COVID, we got an online technical director because our technical directors were not equipped. They were not trained for the online platform. So we had to get someone who was trained for that. We had to get a video editor because in effect, what we churned out were videos. And of course, because he had to edit so many, one person cannot, within the given time, would have a terrible time editing 19 plays. So gave him an assistant. And then we had OBS operators. And there were not enough of them. Ideally, I learned we had to have 1 SM and 1 OBS operator per play. We had 1 SM per play, that's fine. But we only got 4 OBS operators. Again, that's where the interns from UP came in. We had a set supervisor pre-COVID, but no more set. So we no longer needed one. Fortunately, this person is a CCP employee, so hindi naman siya nawalan ng trabaho. Costumistas, property master. We had stage hands and then interns. Just a word about the stage hands. There was no way that we could justify to the government, keeping them on. But again, my beautiful stage managers, both the alumni and the present staff, si Mara and Lorraine Makatangay, who was the head SM last year, put up a fundraising activity, and they managed to raise the equivalent of the salary of these stage hands, and we were able to give it to them. So that was a very good thing. And then the next step is gathering stage managers for a pool, and then the preparation of a marketing and media plan. Gathering stage managers for a pool. In general, whenever we get directors, the first thing we ask them is if they have a preferred stage manager. Because of course, as you know, the director works very closely with the stage manager. So it is best if he names the person that he gets along with, who understands his work ethic, etc. But it is always good for us to have a pool just in case you have a director, and the majority of our directors will tell us, do you have anyone in mind? Then we assign. And then the preparation of a marketing and media plan. So as you can see, we do as much as we can before the plays are even chosen. Once the artists step in, because once the artists step in, then there is very little breathing room. Now, how do we do a marketing plan without knowing what the plays are? From the start, the Virgin Lab Fest is defined as a festival of untried, untested, unstaged works. That is how we sell it, and that is what we stick to. And I don't know if you guys have watched the Lab Fest, but it's very hard to get tickets to the Lab Fest because it's a popular festival. Now, in addition to all of this, actually, it is such a big deal for the Lab Fest to have the full support of the heads of all partner organizations and to have 2 sets of marketing and media teams, Tanghalang Pilipino and the CCP. Okay. Step 7 is preparatory meetings, orientation meetings of everyone involved. That is very important because it is at the, when we have these orientation meetings, there is a lot of excitement because it is when the entire team joins in. Very often we call for an orientation of directors and playwrights, and then the production team comes in, and then we're all together, and that's when you realize na ito na to, buo na to, this is the class of whatever, VLF 16, VLF 15. It's your first time to meet face-to-face as a group. And this year, it was the only time we met face-to-face. And I'm glad that we were able to take a picture of that. Orientation meetings are absolutely crucial because they serve to set the tone of the festival. What do I mean by set the tone? It is when you welcome everyone in. It is when you tell them, especially the virgins, what the festival is about. It is when you show everyone how collaborative it is. It is when we clarify all expectations, artistic, and this is very important, financial, administrative, and marketing. Because we as a festival manager, as a production manager, you are not dealing with one single play. You are dealing with an entire festival. You're not even dealing with 18 plays. You're dealing also with the Playwrights Fair, with the fellowship program, etc. So you have to be very clear about the administrative and financial aspects of it. And then we present all schedules. And that also has to be very clear to everyone, including the playwrights. Because at the Virgin Lab Fest, the playwrights don't just submit their works. They are part of the creative process. They are requested to attend as many rehearsals as they can because it's about their work. It is also at these meetings that information is gathered for contracts, for marketing, for whatever other purpose. Pre-COVID, as most of you know, most plays were grouped into sets, set A, B, C, D, E. So, of course, post-COVID, we could not see our online audiences sitting down for sets of 3. So, nawala yung sets. But the design meetings are crucial, especially when we were actually constructing sets. Sila Carlo know this. And present at these design meetings are the directors, playwrights, and stage managers of each play in each set, the production manager, technical director, the designers in sound, lights, and set, property master, and set supervisor. It is at these design meetings where we discuss everything. The schedule. It is when the directors per set meet each other, share ideas, and occasionally compromise. Why? Because you have 3 plays in a single set with a 10-minute interval. Set changes are important. So, kami, as much as possible, we ask them, can we at least have, can your flooring at least be of the same color so that we don't need to change the floor during the interval? It's that sort of conversation that we have. And whenever possible, we try to have one set designer per set of 3 plays na magkakasama. Okay. Step 8 is rehearsals, gathering of requirements, food and transportation, finalized. Step 9, marketing goes full blast and we construct the sets. And step 10 is critiquing and final production meeting. Steps 8 to 10 is when all of your preparations are put to good use. It's also theoretically the point where in general, I try to sit back and relax because my technical director is there, my stage managers are there, and my festival director is preoccupied with the aesthetic aspect of it. Of course, I never end up relaxing because it is at this point where 100 emergencies happen daily. And while I am not the head SM, I do need to monitor what happens in every single rehearsal. So I do read all rehearsal reports. At the Lab Fest, what we do is for every year, we set up a Gmail account exclusively for the Lab Fest. And then those of us in the core group have access to that Gmail account so that we can upload all documents there and we are all on the same page all the time. And then again, while we do have a marketing team, as production manager, I feel that it is also on me to make sure that things are happening everywhere in terms of the rehearsals, marketing, etc. So in as much as the paperwork may be done at this point, and a lot of the other paperwork is being done by my partner, Clotty, and her assistant, Nikki, the word monitor takes on a newer, deeper meaning, especially with the Lab Fest. Our final production meeting is held in a big venue, or in the case of this year, in a gigantic Zoom meeting because we discuss each and every play one by one. All aspects from, is it appropriate, the marketing aspect, is it appropriate for children or adults? Pag Lab Fest, 90% of the time, college and above ang topic na. What are the technical requirements? Is everything in? Etc. Okay. Why? Why do we do this as a whole and not per play? Because we have to see the full picture of the festival. That's the difference. When you're PM or festival manager of an activity this big, you have to think of the whole thing. You cannot think piecemeal. You cannot think only of this play or that play. Okay. We need to see how resources are trafficked, the movement of staff. So, you know, for example, last year was our year of sofas. We had 3 or 4 sofas backstage. And so, you know, it's not very practical. So what we wanted to do was just to change, dress up one sofa or whatever. So we just needed to find ways to move this here and that, the logistics of transferring items and redecorating them and everything. And then in terms of the Lab Fest also, there are directors who have favorite actors. We finally came up with a rule that everyone can only have a maximum of 2 roles in the festival. Because there were years when we had an actor who would have, I think, 4 plays. And then it would be the headache of the stage managers who would have to, you know, traffic his rehearsals and everything. So you have trafficking of material, you have trafficking of personnel. And then we had 8 stage hands. You have 8 stage hands and you have 18 stage managers. So you have to tell the stage managers, okay, you cannot use the stage hands all the time because nakapwesto sila sa isang lugar. So all of that has to be discussed. Okay. Now, again, going back to this year's reality. Next slide, please. We had to discuss marketing more than usual this year because there were so many challenges. Number one is, are we even going to charge for the festival? Because it seemed, in the beginning, it seemed a little bit cruel to charge for the festival when no one was making money. Everyone was working from home. A lot of people had lost jobs. So were we going revenue or non-revenue? Then we realized that if we want to push for the industry to remain alive and in some way, shape, or form, then we would have to find the means to earn money. So we went with revenue, but it was unbelievably cheap. That's fine. And in recognition of the need to donate, then we also had the donation button. Platform. Essentially, what would our new stage be? So initially, I Want TV had a good offer, but it fell through. So after many, many discussions, we ended up with Vimeo, which had its fair share of issues, but in general, we managed. Collaterals. How would we use our collaterals? So we had a souvenir program, but it was online. Prior to COVID, actually, our tagline was Rurok. Kasi parang we're talking Sweet 16, you have reached your peak, etc. Rurok. And then COVID came along, and it seemed more appropriate na kapit. Kasi yun ang ginagawa natin lahat, kumakapit tayo. We retained our posters, but again, it was all online. Next slide, please. And then ito sila Ish are familiar with this. There was a new issue of management of platforms because we were not trained in doing this. How do we manage Facebook pages, the CCP website? What would the difference be between the CCP web, the contents of each of these platforms? And then, diba, when you enter a theater and you watch, you are silent. Not so when it is streamed online. Wait lang. Balik ka. Not so when it is streamed online. When it is streamed online, there are hundreds of comments. So we formed a community management group, and again, I credit sila Ish and sila Jack and si Sok Amon, our stage manager, who formed guidelines for this. And then again, we depend on the press, but no press con could be held. So we did a series of interviews. The reason marketing was particularly important was that people were canceling events left, right, and center. And we really, really wanted people to know that we were pushing through. Once the festival starts, I have to look towards the end of the festival. Because the machinery is in place, stage managers are running the show, I am just monitoring. In the time before COVID, it would mean cast party, strike, storage, return of items, clearances. The only difference now is walang cast party, tapos walang strike, or the strike happened in everyone's homes. And we did return everything to the various homes. Now, next slide. here are some of the concerns which we had to deal with. Number one, the available technology and staff. CCP is very low tech. And then we had to purchase a premium Zoom account. We had to purchase Vimeo, and that meant many conversations with our finance people because hindi mura ang Vimeo. In previous years, Playwrights Fair, the fellowship team provided their own team. This year, we had to back them up, give them enough backup. And then again, the schedule was such that because we presumed that online audiences would be more comfortable with one play shown for 1 hour rather than 3 shown for 2 to 3 hours. Also, we just did not know how long people's signals would hang on. And then the difference also is an online audience would be happy to watch a play after 10 p.m. So in fact, we had one play, Wanted Nail Borders, which was very risque. We showed it after midnight. And it had a lot of people watching. Next slide, please. And then we wanted to retain the liveness of theater because that was, and that remains a major concern for us. Is Virgin Lab Fest 2020 a theater festival? Or did it become a short film festival? I honestly don't know. But part of theater is live performance. So every featured work started and ended with a live performance, as did every staged reading and all sessions of the Playwrights Fair and the culminating activities of the fellowship. So now here I am. Clotty and I are the only ones left of the team. Everyone has been cleared, and typical of the government, very slowly, we are processing payments. And unfortunately, because we are not able to physically report for work, it is taking longer than usual. All the evaluations meetings are done. In terms of the Lab Fest, we do not evaluate just once. We evaluated this year per group of people because it's very hard to have a meaningful, a long discussion with 193, 200 people. So all the production books are in, and all the videos downloaded for archival purposes. We were very conscious that this was a pioneering activity. So our Google Drive had like 110 gig occupied because of all the materials, the production books, the videos, which we put there, and that has all been backed up. So that's it. 12 steps to a festival. How were we able to do this and, you know, still sleep a few hours every night? One, through a knowledge of the systems of our organization, particularly the CCP. Two, because we had a good number of people who were virgins and brought in new ideas, new and beautiful ideas to the festival, and an even bigger number of people who were veterans and who knew the festival inside out. And I will say it again, the festival could not have survived without its staff, the younger staff. Yeah, because my student number is 82, so you know how old I am. I did not grow up in an online world. but the staff did. So nagbaliktad, sila ang nagturo sa amin. But there is nothing more professionally satisfying than to see this project come to full fruition. And, you know, on opening night, we had watch parties, the different staff members, and we saw each other screaming because we were so happy. We did not know that it could be done online, but we managed. So, although naka-block off na sa akin ng April to June as the months where I will not sleep for more than 3 or 4 hours a night, with its wealth of artists and the works that come out of it, despite all problems, and you would not believe some of the problems, it is more than worth it. Just to have discovered 19 new works for this year, and the majority of our playwrights this year were new, that alone is satisfying. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Nikki. My God. I love it. My steps. Maraming salamat, Miss Nikki. And thank you once again for the pioneering effort for our community. Actually, paulit-ulit ko sinasabi kay JK ito na nung panahon ng pandemic, parang wala tayong ibang way. Parang yung title na kapit, talagang nagiging kapit bahay tayo. I mean, it's also a call for help. Siguro sa communities, kaya sabi ko kay JK, naging project din namin ni JK na, sige kapatid, tulong kami sa university kasi nga wala rin kaming paraan para matutunan to. I mean, paano namin ituturo? So baka pwede mag-share tayo ng resources. At ngayon ko nakikita yung bunga siguro ng mga efforts natin at decisions natin at risks natin nung March. Siguro parang ang nakuha ko lang dito, Miss Nikki, ay yung nagbigay kayo ng whole new meaning for the show must go on. Dahil of course, consider ninyo yung safety ng bawat tao. Napaka-importante ng consent na sinasabi ninyo kung kaya ba nilang gawin yung online work because it's not part of their contracts. Pangalawa, yung priority na makapagbigay ng trabaho sa panahon na ang taas ng unemployment noon. Tapos siguro maganda rin, Ma'am Nikki, na nasabi mo ay bawat step na ginagawa mo as the festival manager, may consultation with everyone. Tapos magandang contribution yung Trafficking of Resources. Yung ginawa nyo yung AC headquarters ay naging storage. At di ko alam, for us, parang akin, nightmare yung papadala ka kung saan-saan. Like LBC, meron na ba kayong premium account sa LBC niyan?
Lahat na pagdaanan namin yung LBC, Grab, Transportify, Lala Move, and Rent a Car.
Yeah. Ibang-iba. And even the emerging positions na sinabi ninyo for digital performance. At syempre, yung pag-adjust din ng schedule online ng mga like yung wanted mail borders. I mean, yan yung mga considerations sigurong nakuha namin ngayon. Siguro, Miss Nikki, open ko lang din yung floor. Siguro, bigay ko kay Isa para siya mag-moderate ng questions. Baka may mga questions tayo from the students. Kung okay lang po. Thank you. Okay, salamat Miss Nikki para doon. Hello po, ma'am. Sana po okay kayo. Opo. So, para sa mga estudyante, meron ba kayong mga katanungan? Kung may tanong kayo, so I saw na wala namang naglagay sa chat box. Raise your hand or just open your, what do you call this, your camera, and then, so we know that you're going to speak. Meron po ba tayong mga katanungan? Or kahit din, but lalo na rin para sa mga guro na nandito, baka meron kayong mga katanungan.
Si Steffi po, nakataas ang kamay. Steffi.
Okay, yes, Steffi.
Steffi po ay kasama namin sa VLF. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm one of the interns po. I was tasked to be one of the coordinators and ASMs for the Playwrights Fair. With that, I was able to work and communicate with a lot of people like Miss Bebang, the playwrights, and the tech team. As you mentioned po kanina, communication is crucial. Since nag-shift po sa bagong platform, what can you say about online communication? Do you think it's better or more convenient than face-to-face communication? And what challenges or problems did you face and how did you handle them po? Yan na po.
Oh, on the one hand, kasi what I like about online communication is, especially when I type things out, it is recorded. It is recorded. A long time ago, when Roddy Vera was festival director of the Lab Fest, and I remember this quite clearly, Roddy and I would chat every morning after he goes swimming, kasi maaga gumising si Roddy. We would have long conversations online, and then I would literally print out these conversations because they became the basis for my work every day. So I am a fan of online communication. And then based also on our evaluations, even if we return to whatever normal will be defined as, some people have stated that the CCP is far, far away and many traffic lights away. So there is already the request that meetings at least be held online. So I have I like online communication. However, the problem for me of online communication, and I only realized that now, is that so much of communication depends on body language, on the way people, I mean, you're theater majors, you know this better than I do, on the way people move and look and that. So there are nuances that I cannot get from online communication that I get from face to face. So I think eventually it should be a good balance of both. Kasi we also have to realize that we all live far from each other, and even when we are permitted to travel is not a lot of fun. Now, the other thing about online communication is, as I said, the LabFest has always had at least 10 chat groups, COVID or not COVID. And it has worked for us. And actually what happens to me sometimes is I tell people, what do you prefer? I can go Messenger, I can go Viber, I can go WhatsApp. If there's something else out there and it's better for you, then I will do that too. Yun. And thank you, Steffi, for helping out. I know the Playwrights Fair had many challenges.
Thank you din po.
So, thank you po, ma'am. Apart from questions, baka meron kayong mga comments or realizations, discoveries, matapos marinig yung diniscuss ni Ms. Nikki.
Ito ha, baka malito kayo kasi paiba-iba yung numbers ng LabFest because these were among our challenges. May 3 play na nagsabing magba-back out sila. Tapos yung isa, mid-May, bumalik. So, initially, we had 9 featured works, naging 10. And then, dun sa staged readings, and I don't know how much you may have heard about this, 1 play had to be canceled because there were internal issues. And then 1 week after we opened, 1 featured work had to back out as well. So, you know, now minsan 18, 19, we're may ano yan eh. Anyway, it's part of the excitement to have this. I'm in, I'm out, I've canceled, etc.
Habang nag-iisip po sila, Miss Nikki, ako na lang po magtatanong.
Ako nga isa eh. I'm sure you have questions.
So, yung isa po ay, ngayon na nag-migrate kayo dito sa virtual space, no? Na pansin nyo ba kung mas malaki yung reach? Meron ba kayo nung numbers ng mga nung views ninyo? Or even in the way that people were reacting or commenting, were
definitely lumaki yung reach. Definitely lumaki yung reach. Umabot kami sa 40,000 views for a single player. So, kasi dati, di ba, we could accommodate no more than 300 times 8 performances. So, konti lang yon. But that's the beauty nga of online. Lumaki yung reach, and then because ang agreement kasi namin, kasi di ba ang behavior ng online audience is you want to watch it at your leisure. Kahit tayo, di ba, pag nanonood tayo ng Netflix or whatever, we want to watch it at our leisure. So ang agreement namin sa lahat ng playwrights and directors, after the first week of the festival, for 2 full weeks, available sa Vimeo yung work nila. Tapos pag nag-purchase ng access pass, pwedeng manood at any time yung tao. So based on that, sobrang laki ng reach ng I can pull it up actually. Kasi I don't have the numbers, but off the top of my head, we reached 40 to 50,000. And then also, the interesting thing is, because we were online and we were not limited by staff or artists who were based here in Manila, we had one actress in Australia, si Mayan Estaniero. We had, from Mongoloid, the Casa de Pan, we had one playwright based in the US and 2 actors based in the US. So, nung live performance sila, nagising sila ng madaling araw. We also had an actor based in Japan. So, you know, that's and then meron kaming playwright na nasa Bicol, meron kaming actor na nasa Tacloban. Yun ang masarap ngayon sa online. Biglang wala kang physical barriers. Interesting. Okay. Alam mo, nandito si Carlo Pagunaling, no? Kasi ang challenge dito for everyone was to reinvent their work. So, halimbawa sa stage manager, ang tanong namin, paano ka mag-ASM sa Zoom? So, na-figure out yon. Tinanong namin kay Zard Eguia, yung head ng design team namin, kung paano nila gagawin ang design. So, ang nangyari sa designers, tumulong sila sa directors in terms of yung background. It became a very graphic matter. Rather than, tapos sabi ni Zard, hindi naman daw nagbago trabaho nila. It's just na hindi na-construct. Kasi ang ginawa namin for the designers, the lights designer, the set designer, and si TJ, no, the sound designer, after the live show, before the live show, we gave them a segment where they were able to explain their design. Para for the audience, it was put in context as well. Yun. Kasi sayang napag-isipan na yon, tapos syempre nagbago dahil sa ano. So, and then of course, the plan is that next year, if, God willing, wala na tong COVID or wala na yung lockdown anyway, the same set of plays ipapalabas din sa teatro. Mabubuo din. We hope. Yun.
We hope for that din, ma'am.
No,
pero kung sakali, if this continues, kasi yung vaccine parang mahabaan din ang proseso, di ba?
Oo, madugo pa.
may possibility po ba na mag-pursue sa ganitong platform pa din?
Meron kasi parang based on yung mga usapan namin afterwards, karamihan ng tao gusto nila hybrid, not just in terms of the preparations, but in terms of other aspects. Halimbawa, yung mga interviews namin of directors and playwrights na pinalabas sa Vimeo, that's educational. Pwede mo yan ilagay sa Vimeo or sa Kumu or Facebook or whatever. Yung performance siguro medyo madugo. Kung madugo in terms of, kasi yung live performance, ang hirap-hirap kasi may isang aktor na humina ang signal. Diyos ko, hindi na namin magawa. And then our problem also with the performances is, kahit anong sabihin mo na yung na safe yung platform, there is someone out there who will find a way to download it. There is, I mean, it seems almost impossible to put in, to make the safety measures 100%. So in terms of copyright, ang hirap-hirap, hindi namin, actually may nag-download eh. Pero parang, di ba, may nag-effort na mag-download kahit not ng safety measure nandun. Yan ang issue. And then also, one of our issues for this platform was copyright. Kasi ang CCP, we have a blanket contract with PhilSCAP for, we just pay them a set amount annually, but it only covers live performances. Also, biglang ito tayo online na may algorithm pala na pag covered by copyright yung work, biglang mamamatay yung sound. So, those are the things na, ganun pala pag online, we had to deal with that. Yun. Si Huleb daw.
Ayan, Olive.
Miss Nikki, nasabi mo na kanina, two-part tong question ko. Kasi kanina nabanggit mo, na-explore nyo lahat ng delivery apps from Grab to Lalamove to Transportify. Yun yung una kong tanong, parang, do you have parang additional staff for that? Parang how did you figure out at paano nyo siya na-justify actually sa government terms na kung ano yung gagamitin yung app? The second question is, you mentioned something, parang may actor tayo sa Zambales and you had to provide him or her resources. Paano kaya yun pag malayuan, like for Mayan din na nasa Australia? Siguro ganun yung iniisip ko, yung parang nightmare siya for me sa logistics. Thank you.
Okay, we're very lucky because partner organization ng LabFest, ang Writer's Block. Normally, ang Writer's Block will provide a cash advance na usually ginagamit ko yan pandivisorya ko. You know, yung mga walang resibo na ano. This year, yung mga hindi namin ma-justify sa gobyerno, doon namin kinuha. So, doon namin kinuha lahat ng transportation. Lahat ng transportation. Kasi, initially I was thinking, kasi malaki ang motor pool ng CCP. Pero hindi namin magamit ang motor pool ng CCP kasi starting in April, may pasok na sa CCP at ang nangyayari sa mga driver ng CCP, sinusundo nila ang mga empleyado sa bahay. Hindi ko naman yung tatanggihan because that's a beautiful service, no? So, yun, nakuha namin sa cash advance ng Writer's Block. Now, as to the actors who needed additional assistance, round about May, na-assess na nila Mara, nila Sok, kung sino-sino ang hindi talaga kakayanin ng kanilang present Wi-Fi setup, yung requirements ng festival. And then based on that, and again, getting from the cash advance of Writer's Block, bumili kami ng 10 broadband, Smart at saka Globe, tapos dinistribute namin. Si Mayen, malakas ang Wi-Fi sa Australia, mabuti na lang. Yung sa US, malakas din ang wifi nila. Yung sa region, reimbursement ang katapat nun. Na-reimburse naman namin sila via yon GCash, bank transfer, natuto ako sa lahat ng ganyan.
So, I guess po, Ma'am Nikki, maraming pong salamat sa pagbibigay niyo po ng oras sa aming mga students po. And I hope din, feeling ko nahihiya lang itong mga students namin na magtanong. Pero kung meron kayo, lalo na po kasi importante itong mga ganitong sessions sa kanila kasi dito po sila matututo. Lalo na po, karamihan sa kanila dito ay production management talaga ang gustong gawin. So, itong sila Guy, itong si Steffi, si Abigail, at saka si Tin, at saka si Johan, talagang gusto nilang mag-practice ng production management in the future. So sana po ma'am, i-share ko na lang po ang email address nyo sa kanila kung itanong po sila kasi malaking tulong po kayo. And mula po dito, maraming pong salamat ma'am Nikki and maraming salamat po sa Dumalo. Okay lang po bang magkaroon tayo ng class picture?
Sure.
Magbukas tayo ng cameras.
So, Miss Nikki.
Another project has ended, but it is with pride that this brown bag online forum on emergency theater and performance was realized, and many of you were able to attend it. This forum, which focused on possibilities and problems of theater and performance in this time of the pandemic, tackled a wide range of issues, and we are thankful to the speakers who shared their valuable knowledge and experience. From new and emergent performance forms and ways of exploring possibilities of online and digital modalities, especially on the learning and teaching of theater and performance, onto the state of artist welfare during this global health crisis, the topics opened windows of possibilities and opportunities. They enrich our knowledge on issues in theater and performance in this time of COVID. One of the sectors in the society that has been heavily impacted by this pandemic is the theater and entertainment industry. So this forum is very relevant and timely to reflect on how these matters are being dealt with and to give us insights on how to stay afloat despite the huge challenges that we have to face. I thank all the speakers who generously shared their valuable knowledge and experience on the various topics that were shared on this forum. I will give a special shout out to my former student, Mr. Robert Arlo de Guzman. Thanks, Arlo, for joining this very important activity. And most of all, I thank the organizers of the forum, our ever-energetic and hardworking faculty of the Theater Division of the Department of Speech, Communication, and Theater Arts, led by Assistant Professor Olivia Nieto. We're also grateful to the UP Diliman Office for Initiatives in Culture and the Arts, or OICA, for their support in this project. I hope that the knowledge gained and the valuable lessons learned from these lectures will help us navigate during these difficult times. May we overcome this with hope in our hearts and trusting that this too shall pass. Mabuhay kayo.